Go into specific natural disasters, the scientific explanations behind them, and just see from someone who isn't qualified in science if these explanations are compatible with the omnis. I'm not going to cover El Ninos though, as I don't know a lot about them, and no matter how many books I read, I can't grasp what they are. I'm nowhere near qualified enough to talk about any of these disasters, but this is just going to be from your average person's perspective. And this will be my sort of take on how they relate to the problem of evil. Avalanches. You can't visit snowy mountains without a huge risk of these. Not much to say here, other than these seem like they'd be a total nuisance. What do they accomplish in God's divine plan? I would think they would only mess it up. I guess I'll never understand what Christians will say, even though we're created in the image of God. And I'm sorry if you're tired of me saying that. I just keep finding so many applications for it. So, anyway, snow buries you up to the head, you suffocate or die of hypothermia, whichever comes first. Sounds horrible. Fortunately, the annual death rate worldwide is around 150, roughly, so it could be a lot worse. But they still can move super fast and destroy nearby property. We have some more wintertime weather with blizzards. Now, these have a lot of things you need to watch out for. Reduced visibility, on top of the cold weather, obviously. Possible hail, but that's another type of precipitation. If you're outside too long, you'll die of hypothermia. Frostbite also seems common depending on the temperatures. It'd probably impact your face most. Anything really below a hat, but above a scarf. Yeah, but what if you go inside? The power can go out, and there goes your heating. Everyone but a fool would have a generator, though. Yeah, but if it's faulty, it'll produce carbon monoxide. And I discovered today you can get a heart attack by shoveling too much snow. I guess the back pain would have to take a back seat. No pun intended. And you're not allowed to sweat, otherwise, you could get hypothermia. Plus, I doubt animals would survive these conditions, especially if they're not used to the cold. Yeah, but they have adaptations. How exactly are those developed again? From the winter resistant ones staying alive and all the rest dying, takes lots and lots of death for you to see an entire species with an adaptation. And who made that the case? God. The death statistics are hard because sources calculate them differently. Some sources factor in indirect deaths, such as power outage hypothermia and traffic collisions caused by the lack of vision. So I'm not going to go into that. I remember as a kid reading an I Survived book that was the 1888 blizzard. It was the most thrilling one I've read, to say the least. But I have more disasters to cover, so let's move along. Next, we have droughts. Now, no rain means a lot of things. Nowhere to get buckets of water, all your crops die, and everyone suffers the consequences. Market shortages cause prices to go up. And I don't think the annual death total is right for this because weather conditions vary year to year. Besides, it won't even include the large amounts of livestock that would also die of thirst. I did see a statistic that was like 11 million people have died from droughts since 1900, but that's around 88,000 a year. Is that right? Is it that much? Hang on, that average was probably inflated from the Dust Bowl and some major droughts in India. Oh, yeah, droughts were responsible for the Dust Bowl. And I found a really cool documentary on droughts that I'll link down below. It talks about the 2011 California drought and breaks down potential predictions via the water tables. And this is why I love documentaries. Okay, they literally fly in a helicopter to measure the rate of snow melting to help determine these potential droughts. I'm not a science nerd, but I still find that cool, and I hope you find that as cool as I do. They have videos for pretty much any natural disaster, this channel, but don't you think it's a little cruel how God made droughts so hard to predict and measure? How millions of years later people still don't know so much about them? I won't go any longer because I already touched this earlier with the water crisis part of my last video. Oh, and they cause wildfires, which are disasters of their own. While only around 30 people died in the recent California wildfires, it left so many people without homes. I'd imagine those deaths were brutal though. These fires, they can go through entire farms, which literally destroys one of the things we need to survive. Smoke can rise into the atmosphere and contaminate the air, taking away another thing we need to survive. They burn trees, which we need to breathe. This seems like one of the more painful natural disaster deaths, other than maybe getting hit by flying debris. What did the trees do to deserve getting burned by God? Why did he make fires as dangerous as they are? I just can't answer those. And don't even get me started on how easy it is to start one of these things. Even if someone doesn't light a fire themselves, if the air is dry enough, brush can catch fire through heat alone. That fire then spreads to the surrounding trees, and boom, now you have a large fire that humans didn't have anything to do with. Sometimes they do cause it, but many of them also contribute to stopping it, rescuing people, and putting out certain sections of it. Thank you, firefighters. Well, you at least have a chance with many other disasters. It's hard to do anything with volcanic eruptions if you live near them. The lava can destroy entire towns at once. I mean, look at Pompeii. The smoke can pollute the air. Earthquakes and tsunamis also stem from this as well. And plus, I don't think any nearby animals and plants would survive as well. At least with floods, there are animals who can live comfortably in water. Unless the animal can fly, they're not going to make it with flowing lava all around them. And that's what makes these disasters unnecessary. If God needs these animals or people up in heaven, kill them in a less painful way. If God wants to teach someone a lesson, it's at the expense of someone else. Plus, He's all powerful. He can find a way to do it without the suffering. Now, I don't see a reason for in God's wonderfully divine plan for earthquakes to even exist. Although my opinion stands with the rest of these disasters, but mostly earthquakes. These could have easily never existed if God just created the Earth's crust to, you know, stay in place instead of plate tectonics moving all the time. I don't know very much about these since I've probably experienced one or two, and they weren't very big. These are one of those disasters that are just annoying until they cause major damage, then they're a problem. They can cause trees to fall down, kill plants and animals, and destroy their habitats. And for some reason, landslides and mudslides can result from these. That reason is because gravity overpowers friction. Now, I'm going to use the tiny bit of physics, the year of physics that I got in 12th grade, and try and work this out. I did rarely deal with angular friction and gravitational forces acting on each other at the same time in that physics class. That's a little advanced, but I'm going to go into the stuff that I know. Although I am horrible with angles. So let's approach it a different way. Normal force and gravity are equivalent opposites, except when at angles, I believe. And please let me know if I'm wrong about any of this. To relate friction to gravitational force and normal force, you multiply normal force, which you get by doing trigonometry, which is where the angles come in, by the coefficient of friction, which, if you forget or don't know, measures the intensity of the frictional force. Mud is going to have a super small coefficient of friction because it's so slippery. Now, water is heavy. Have you ever tried to lift a bucket of that? It's going to make your gravitational force big. And if I'm not mistaken, the comparison of the huge weight of water and the small frictional force is all we need to cause landslides and mudslides. Now, with how common these can be, killing roughly 50 people a year, and the billions of dollars in annual property damage, nobody knows why these need to happen. All it takes is just some excess rainfall, and there you go. Speaking of excess rainfall, let's talk about floods. If God is all knowing, he'd know the exact weather conditions down to the cloud that would cause a flood and all kinds of other destruction. Yet he continues to induce all this pain on the victims and their families. I know I already covered the excessive amounts of pain that humans and other animals experience in their daily lives in another video, and drowning adds on to that. God created us to need oxygen. Water is partially made up of oxygen, yet apparently not enough to keep us alive when we're submerged in it. And plus, everything in this world needs to this perfect balance. You drink too much water, you die. You drink too little water, you die. If there's too little water in an area, your crops can't grow. There's too much, the ocean takes your crops along with it. My personal belief is that if God exists, any God, one or multiple, they aren't like the Christian God, because the problem of evil is just too much for me to bear. They're either not all powerful, not in control of the world, or not all loving. There could even be, like I said, multiple gods out there. I don't know. Maybe one of them controls the earth and the others don't have anything to do with it. I don't know who's responsible for flooding entire areas and destroying homes and everything, if anyone. We don't even know how dirty that water is anyway. This is probably the same water that animals go to the bathroom in. No wonder why we can't drink it safely. That might not be the whole reason why, but you get what I'm saying. Floods are terrifying, especially flash floods. Anything can be stronger than a human if there's enough of it. And water's definitely no exception. Tsunamis are the scariest waves ever. They kind of go hand in hand with floods, but instead of accumulating over rainfall slowly, the wave just crashes on the land. I also read an I Survived book on this, the 2011 Japanese tsunami. Even if you're not 10 years old, I suggest you go read it. These are often side effects of earthquakes and volcanic eruptions, but they just feel like their own thing, honestly. Even if plate tectonics need to move and volcanoes need to erupt in God's plan, why do there need to be massive waves on top of that? It just doesn't make sense. Now, I know we're very fortunate we can track all these disasters, especially hurricanes, but that hasn't always been the case. Even when we can predict them, they still destroy everything they can. It doesn't even seem hard to create a hurricane naturally. You just need moist air rising and winds going in the right direction, and the Earth's rotation will do the rest for you. You get about 30 of these globally from just a 5 month season. Luckily, these things die out the more they go on to land. As long as they don't find water again, they shouldn't affect areas that aren't coastal. These things also have a lot you have to worry about: strong rain, winds, possible flying debris. I doubt anyone's power survives. Knowing mine, it would not. We know roughly when they're coming, what damage they'll do, but we can't exactly stop it from doing the damage, and you can't move a house from one place to another and keep it in one piece. Then that's money and work needed to rebuild those places, all because God's too ignorant. His plan, that's apparently super divine, doesn't take into account the mass murder and the emotional trauma. If God's responsible for taking away life, then that would make him the worst mass murderer in the world. Tell me, what did 1 week old babies do to get blown away in these hurricanes? If life truly is eternal, then it'll be but a blip in the afterlife. However, can we really know if life is eternal with all this divine hiddenness? Anyway, I'm getting off track. Besides maybe fires, I'd say tornadoes are the scariest natural disasters because,
I had a bad experience.
trust me, that's gonna be its own video. Winds so violent they can take you to faraway lands, so much flying debris, all that. Even if we ignore the value of all the things people built, animal habitats and even animals themselves are being swept up in tornadoes at what feels like the speed of sound. Again, I'm going to make a video on my experiences involving tornadoes, so let me stop talking. So that's going to be it. Thank you so much for watching.